Oh, snap.
How's it going?
Grant Timus, is that you?
That is I. That is I.
Welcome to the Part-Time Otaku Podcast. That's Grant. I'm Dave. Today we're going to recap and discuss Attack on Titan Season 4, Episode 3. It was dope.
To say the least.
This is a good one, man. It felt like such a weird episode. I want to say for the first 18 minutes, which is I was like, where are we going? Is there? I'm cool with flashbacks and all that, but then the ending hit me, and I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna have so much to discuss. It puts so many different things into perspective.
Yeah, it was all the missing pieces along the way have just fallen into our laps after this episode. It's like you said, there's been some breadcrumbs, the whole Bertold and Reiner along the way, and just we have the full picture now. It's I think Reiner's going to go down as one of the most sympathetic villains.
Oh my god, dude! Yeah,
of all time.
If you can even call him a villain at the end of this, what a 180 they've done.
Yeah, that's true. Antagonist would probably be the more suitable, but
this episode is really not just about just Reiner, but he's definitely, I want to say, the figurehead for a lot of the play or a lot of the confusion that all these characters have, and he's definitely the centerfold. We're gonna get into it, but I remember at the end of season 3, I was like, okay, I've had it with this character. I understand his role, and I'm tired of it. We've killed him now 4 times. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah.
And then, by the end of this episode, you're rooting for the guy. It's oh my god, how could I ever be so harsh on you for all this stuff? But man, he has really evolved. They did this really deftly, really well done.
There's a scene, which we'll get to it eventually, but I leaned up from the couch, hands, elbows on my knees, I just couldn't believe it. I was
dude.
It was so one of the most visceral, close moments, I've seen.
Definitely. Okay, save that, because I had one of those where I had the cat on me, and the volume was a little low, and something happened on screen, and I knocked the cat away, and I just leaned forward, turn it up. I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
I know.
I wonder if it's the same scene.
We'll see.
Okay, so good preview. I guess we'll start going through the episode chronologically and how it started. And I took some notes, but feel free to let me know if I missed anything here, Grant. I think we opened pretty much on a Reiner flashback, right? Just straight up his childhood. Galliard is there. He's bullying him, talking about how Reiner's only quality is loyalty because he's not the best at anything, really. That's more or less it. It's you're not the smartest, fastest, or strongest.
It's Falco-esque, Eren-esque too, young Eren. Well, I guess not young Eren, more in training Eren. Very similar to Reiner at this time.
Yep.
Just pushing, is just not getting there.
Dedicated and not talentless, just nowhere near the top.
Is just being outclassed by people around him. I really liked the storytelling. The storytelling they did this is Reiner. The episode is Reiner in and out of sleep and nightmare throughout the episode, and each piece of his remembrance is we get a little bit. It cuts to him now, and then we get more, and then it's just then you see him again a little bit later. It's just the way it kind of flowed. It was just very, very cool.
The flow was really well done because if we had an episode that was 100% flashbacks, it gets a little onerous, but they're kind of cutting it, like you said, really well.
Yeah.
One weird thing, this is one of my favorite intros to the opening theme so far this season, because it ends, that scene is Reiner kind of getting bullied by Galliard, and then we see Annie has dismembered a bug.
She
a little telling, a little nod there, oh yeah, this girl's a fucking savage.
Well, it just kind of shows, because was there not a scene when the female Titan was first revealed, she was playing and toying?
Oh, dude, totally.
Do you know what I mean?
It was at one point she's she's got one of the scouts on his string and she's spinning him like a yo-yo.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, definitely, like, it feels like there's a nod to those tendencies, right? She could have just stepped on the bug. She could have just killed the scout in one hit, but it's like, nah, I'm gonna have fun with this.
Yeah. Very.
Um,
I don't think sociopath. Yeah, I guess sociopathy
a
would be
little
the word.
detached. I don't
Very
know.
detached. But
Yeah.
even then, we do get some more. Yeah, this. If there's, it's not a bad thing about the episode, but there's, I feel like we've been saying this 3 weeks in a row now, but like so much, um, not just content, but just so much, um, just exposure to the characters, like just all the stuff we've read over all this period of time, like it just kind of like just clicking.
Yeah.
We're seeing these moments with
Oh
Annie
my god,
and
dude.
Reiner, and even Bertold has a couple moments. They go back to like a couple references from like season one.
That's we're gonna get to that, dude. Yeah, they
Yeah,
pay they pay some homage to some of the first episodes out of the whole series are given nods to, and not just like, oh, maybe we could figure that out later. Like, it feels like a lot of this was so deliberate, um, that Isayama really had this in mind, which is crazy
yeah,
to think like that he was thinking that far ahead.
yeah,
Okay, but we'll get to all that. So right before the opening theme, we see Aaron, like young Aaron, the
yeah,
first time he's been drawn by this studio as well. So that was kind
yeah.
of cool. And I think he's literally saying, "Oh, I wish something would happen."
I laughed at that. I was
Yeah,
like, it's like I wish something would happen. I was like, yeah, me too.
yeah.
We're
And
ready for
then
you.
yeah, I feel you. And then the opening theme, and then I think we jump like right into the current Warriors like childhood. So
Yeah,
you've immediately got Reiner, Annie, Berthold, and at this point they've become Warriors, and they give you like a breakdown of each Warrior. Is that or of each Titan type, more or
well,
less?
that would be going further because we do get that. It kind of opens up to Reiner, as being bullied by Galliard, but it also showed like we get some young Zeke. There's even
Mm-hmm.
like a throwaway line from Zeke, kind of very, you know, Reiner, like stop crying. You're gonna get me in trouble. Like kind of made a
Yeah.
reference to like if you don't clean it up, I'm gonna, and just
Oh right.
I like just as he was walking away, didn't stop anything. Because like also too, like Colt is kind of like significantly older than them now.
Yep.
And Zeke is in that same role where he's clearly significantly older than the rest of them. I
Yep.
thought that was interesting. I wonder if there's anything to that.
There's already kind of a weird
Yeah,
mentor slash leadership role there.
yeah,
I don't know if that was preordained because he was going to be the beast or not,
yeah.
but that role was already forming.
Yes, but sorry. So again, like the one of the coolest moments in the series yet is this breakdown of the Titans, as you said. Like
Yeah.
very. Have you ever seen The Usual Suspects?
Yes.
Or yeah, it was kind of like that. Like you had the lineup and they're breaking down, and just it goes to show like how well suited like the characters, like the people were to the Titan they were getting.
Big time.
Like there's a reason they're handpicked, and this kind of went back to a question you and I had, like I think a week or two ago of like, what is the process? Like there has to be some compatibility issues, or there has to be some like proper compatibility before they're chosen. Like this is completely government run. I don't think any of the kids get any say. It's all the government chooses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that note, like that usual suspects method of like introducing characters in a lot of movies and TV shows, I really hate that.
Yeah.
It really reminds me of like Suicide Squad. It's like, oh, you can't figure out how to actually write a scene that tells people who these people are. So
Sure.
you have to like set up like this corny montage with music and all this shit like to haphazardly jam it down the audience's throat. This is obviously not that because we've watched 60 episodes of the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we know who all of these characters are. I mean, it's from a new perspective, but
It was cool because it felt like a legitimate mission report.
yeah, 100%.
Like
Because yeah,
it felt like in the world. Yeah.
it sinks because it probably is a mission report. Um, just quickly on all that, like the animation here when they're showing the female Titan and who we again haven't seen this studio draw, and they show the colossal and they show the colossal Titan's explosion, which literally looks like a nuke.
I was wondering if because I think they kind of how I took that is it was the Titans were in a conflict. Like I think that was an actual fight they were involved in.
Oh, you're talking about like
Like
the what you see on screen as they're
I
describing each Titan.
I think yeah, I think as it goes from one to one, it shows like what they did in a conflict.
Oh
Probably when they
yes,
first
yes,
used
yes,
their
yes.
Titans, like because there's no way
Well, I think they
I
actually say before they send them to Parody Island, they actually say, oh, someone says, oh, they're just kids. Can you really trust them with this? It's like, yeah, we've been shipping these kids off to war already.
yeah
Like we've
yeah
just been conquering nations with these kids. So I took that too as like, this is not their first mission. They've been using their Titans at this point already.
at least once because I think there's a reference. Again, we're jumping ahead a little bit.
Hmm.
Reiner makes a comment to Bertold. There's a pretty dramatic and emotional moment between Reiner and Annie and Bertold,
Hmm.
and Reiner says like, "Hey, like you've had no problem using it before. Why is it going to be different now?" More or less,
Yep.
So like or that one time you did it. So I always got the impression they only got to use it once before they went over.
Yeah.
But that's when I clued in because when it gets to Bertold about the Colossal Titan, you know, there's no way like he blew off and they killed their own men. In that camp kind of thing. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
for sure.
they must be in a conflict right now. Like there must be some like they're at war.
No, that's a good point. They've seen
Yeah,
action already.
yeah,
Um, the next scene is, Galliard was the one picking on Reiner for not being special, and then we learn that Reiner's the one that actually gets the warrior, and Galliard gets passed up on originally. We sort of knew this already because of previous episodes, and we learned that Marcel was already a Titan or was already a warrior, but
yeah.
Galliard gets passed up on originally. Um,
Do you think that's true though? Do you think because I have had some conflict. I've of this whole episode, the thing I've been thinking about the most is because there's the recurring theme of like saying I'm sorry,
mhm,
in this episode,
mhm,
of you can tell like the young Eldians like they even though they think it's with the exception of Reiner, like he holds it true, like very dear to his heart. But the rest of them all kind of realize like they are going to die, and they don't want
mhm,
other people to die.
mhm,
Um, but in that mission report, they make like I know Marcel says like I talked up
mhm,
your pros, and also talked up like Galliard's cons.
mhm.
But like the government would not listen.
Oh, so you
Like
don't think that maybe you don't think that he had that much sway?
I think he thought he did,
Oh, I see.
because in that line they say like you know the armor titan is a shield. It is a wall of defense for the titans, and Reiner's perseverance is the reason. you know
And he's definitely got that. So they had a
yeah
point there.
so
That's a good point.
yeah,
I don't know.
and I don't think it's ever going to come back to it. That could just be me like kind of drawing at straws on that. But like I said, I might be wrong because again, it's a recurring theme of like the I'm saying sorry thing. Like I was trying to save someone else from being a Titan, and also this
Yeah.
going back to Reiner. That could be why Reiner is telling Falco to push for it, because Gabby's family.
Yes, that's an interesting take. So far, and we've seen very little of Galliard,
Yeah.
but so far we've seen him in action. He seems to be quite capable. When he
Mm-hmm.
was a kid, he seemed quite confident.
Mm-hmm.
And there are obviously cons with that, but Reiner as a kid doesn't strike me, or didn't strike me, at least the way he was portrayed in this episode, as all that capable. So I believed it. That was my knee jerk reaction.
Yeah.
I was like, they're kids, but they've got insight, and they've got an opportunity at least to inflict their opinion on the powers that be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I agree with you that we'll never really know.
Yeah.
It may not end up mattering because of what happens with regards to the roles for the warriors that we're going to learn about in a second.
Mm-hmm.
They do head off to Parody, when they're 13. But right before we get into that, there's one thing I want to mention. Did you notice a lot of this? Like, I mean, you probably did because they don't. It's not exactly subtle, but they do a lot of like Reiner really reminiscing, and it feels so reminiscent of Eren as a kid. Like, oh gosh darn, if only I was a warrior, I'll be able to save everybody,
Yeah.
or I'll be able to reunite my divorced family,
Yeah.
right? Or if I could only get rid of all those devils on that island, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And for Eren, it was like, God, if I could just kill all the fucking Titans.
Yeah, it just goes to show how like they're all victims. One side has been, brainwashed and indoctrinated into thinking one side of the story, and then the other side was kept in the dark for hundreds of years.
There are no
Like it's
winners in
no,
war. You know what I mean?
no,
Especially for
at
the
all.
people, and we get a little fancy about it later, and we get a little poetic about it later. But
Hmm.
especially for people who have had no stake in the war and they're born into it, there are no winners there.
Hmm.
Um, the bummer, man, right before I think this happens before they head to the island is, you know, I think we only really learn that Reiner's dad is Marleyan like in this episode, right?
Yeah, no, I think yeah. Well, that's how the episode opens up, I believe, is
Yeah, his
that
mom's explaining your
and
dad's
he's in
Marleyan, that's
yeah.
why he can't be with us.
Yeah, and he's just like shaking in bed, like just traumatized, and you can
Yeah,
tell he wants it so bad. And they
I
do
just
such a
wants a
good
family.
job. They do such a good job of just showing like the pain he has.
Oh yeah,
Like he's honestly like the Marley and Eldians have it so bad and so raw. Like
they're worse than second class citizens. I mean, they're
ah,
born into servitude. Um, there's a lot. There's just so much to unpack there. But we've already kind of talked about it enough. It's just that the show isn't letting you forget, and I think that's
no,
probably part of the point, right?
yeah,
Is that if you're born a slave or a second class citizen
mm,
based on your heritage, that isn't like a quick theme we're going to give you in a quick one and done episode, and then we're just
I
going to move right along.
I do think they've been bashing this over the head for the past two episodes, like two prior episodes, for this moment. I do think it's going to ease back a bit because I think the setting up the hierarchy of Marley and who fits into what role and why they were given that role. Like obviously, like we're going to get to it, but like I think we're about to see some action.
Yeah,
We're about to see some collision between some old friends, but that's the vibe I'm getting. But
I
I do
agree.
I do think they've been setting it up to show Reiner's pain.
Yeah, well, it's giving us
Yeah,
all of this stuff is giving us a lot of context for the conflicts to come, and it also is really, I think, meant to conflict the viewer.
yeah,
Like now you don't really know. I mean, we know who we want to win, but like we don't really. I don't really want these people to lose anymore either. Like it's.
yeah.
I don't really look forward to seeing people like Falco and Gabby get caught up in this race war conflict that they were born into.
Hmm.
Um, right before we go to the island mission, Reiner does get to meet his dad, and because he's officially a warrior.
Do you think that was also a flashback?
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like had happened before like the carriage ride scene where they're like they're being paraded down through the city, all the Eldians cheering for them.
Yeah, that was a bummer,
Yeah,
man.
it was,
So just to cover it, you know, as it turns out, his dad isn't like this guy that fell in love with an Eldian woman and couldn't be with her despite his plea because of their race. It was like no, this guy was a total scumbag that
yeah,
went off into the internment camp and had an affair with a slave, probably
hmm,
because he knew that he wouldn't be caught there.
yeah, exactly.
And she couldn't follow him back because
No,
she's Eldian.
exactly.
And at the first sight of Reiner, his son, he's immediately like, oh shit, I gotta get the fuck out of here. My family's gonna find out. I'm gonna
Well,
be punished
yeah,
just for fraternizing with you people.
he was like, is she here? Are you here to torture me?
Yeah.
Like the sight of him is like, this is, Reiner. Oh my God, like,
Our boy needs W, man. Like,
and I don't think he's getting it. That's
no.
that's the thing. I don't think he's getting it.
Yeah.
Which,
So, it ended like so many great estranged relationship stories ends in
yeah,
that the person you're estranged from doesn't end up being everything you've built them up into your head,
yeah,
and he's a total disappointment, and it only makes it worse. And Reiner probably wishes he hadn't met his dad at all. And with that, he's shipped off to
pretty,
conquer a nation
yeah,
at 13 years of age.
unreal stuff. Absolutely unreal stuff.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to just plow ahead and talk about the immediate shit that hits the fan when they start the mission?
This is what I really want to talk about because I got a take on this.
Okay, okay. Do you want me to explain it first before you go?
Yeah, yeah, jump
Okay.
into it.
So They get there. I think they're there for 2.5 minutes. I don't know if it was that quick, but they get there. They're clearly on the outer rim. They haven't
Mhm.
infiltrated a city yet. They're on the outside, and Marcel kicks. Another one bites the dust, sort of literally. But we already knew this was coming. Ymir wakes up. They wake her up, I guess, with their arguing and their bullshit,
Yeah.
and she gets the jump on them, and she eats Marcel, and she runs away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what follows is a fucking mess.
So before we jump into that, I do want to talk about the conversation they were having prior to Ymir waking up.
Which one?
Well, clearly the doubts they were having. That was what led to that conversation. No, I don't, with the exception of Reiner, the other three were all having doubts about the mission. That was my vibe.
Yeah.
Reiner called them out on. I know the tension was drawn to it because Reiner kind of called them out on it, but you know, I don't think they wanted to. They were all kind of like, Bertold was quiet as ever. Had chose not to speak. But like both Annie and Marcel were kind of like,
Yep.
kind of hinting at it. And I'm gonna say it. I think Marcel killed himself.
You think so? You think
I
he
think he did.
wanted a way out?
I think they are really really pushing this Galliard Reiner thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might come to if it comes to it, I could honestly see. I think he was sorry. He wanted his brother to live, and I don't think he wanted to do the mission because he had implied that it was kind of like getting to that like the conversation was kind of going to that. I think he was trying to protect his friends, but I think he wanted nothing to do with what they were doing there.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and he went down a hero,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he got a way out.
Yeah.
And as we know, obviously, it's Ymir who eats him, so she gets his Titan, she runs off, she finds herself in the Scouts years later.
Yeah.
But then immediately following that, the question is, do we proceed with the mission? It seems like a majority no. Berthold and Annie are like, I don't think so. Marcel was the leader. Reiner's like pushing back on it, and they immediately come to blows, and Annie beats the shit out of Reiner.
Absolutely brutal.
It is.
The beating he gets.
The beating was really well animated from an artistic perspective.
Yeah, very gory.
And it was fucking the sound, everything from the sound effects to the dialogue to the way they animate Reiner's like dead face. For a second there, you're like, oh, good thing he's a Titan because she might fucking, if he was a regular person, she might fucking kill him.
And even the shot of like when she walks away and it just cuts to him like rising again. He just has like this
Zombie Reiner, white
yeah,
eyes.
like white eyes, like just that was that's where he snapped.
Yeah, man.
That was the moment.
There's a line he literally says, and it feels like this is maybe the start, right?
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of reasons why Reiner might be suffering from some kind of personality break or mental break or personality disorder, but it feels like this is the inciting incident because he literally says, Reiner is dead. If you
Yeah.
need Marcel, I'll be Marcel. Yeah, that's me now. And going forward, he kind of is the leader of their little pack. If you remember back to season 1 and 2, he's got a bit of a leadership role over Berthold and Annie.
Yes.
There's a number of situations that I remember, like in season 1 or 2, we find out, but Reiner is the one that forces them to kill Marco because Marco heard them talking about their Titans.
Mm.
And Annie's clearly upset about it, and he's like, hey, this is the job. You got to do it.
Yeah.
And then at one point in training, I saw this on Reddit. Annie was like slacking. He's like, hey, remember what happened when you got here? Like he's like kind of giving Annie the third degree. You're like, holy fuck, man. Yeah, someone posted it. And there's this, it's like, no wonder Annie hated the shit out of Reiner. He's like, he's giving her the third degree. Like, hey, remember what happened when you got to this place? You don't fucking slack on this stuff.
Yeah, hypocrite.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's super
but he probably doesn't see it that way because he's like the new
Boss
Reiner.
man. Yeah.
Like he's a different person.
He's disassociated.
And this does come back, like he, and then when he snaps on the wall with Aaron, in season 2, and he kind of reveals him and Bertold, he's like, I don't know who I am anymore. Am I a warrior? Am I a soldier? Like, you can tell. There's what?
But go ahead.
It blows me away that just the character is just opened up. Like
it
I love the attention.
explains so much.
It explains everything. I just love the attention they're showing him. Because even like back in the day, like he had his moments, and he was kind of like, even Gene had like, and Connie had like more like star power, for the lack of a better word. Like in the show, like
Yeah,
Bertolt and Reiner were kind of always in the background, obviously purposely. Now
meant
that
to
we
be
know,
mysterious, no doubt.
but like it's just how the characters of
And
these
like
two, like
it
this character specifically, is developed now.
and it
Is
just explains so much of their reticence, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
towards the end of season 3 part 2, like no wonder Berthold had a hard time pulling the trigger on these people in the past.
yeah,
And then he finally, is able to like kind of set his perspective straight, I guess, in season 3 part 2, but yeah, man, there's for one, there's all the trauma that they grew up in. For another, it's that knowing that they're going to die soon and they're on a mission. And for another is, it's like being an undercover cop for 5 years at a
yeah,
young age. It's like no wonder the guy fucking snapped.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
yeah,
interesting
man.
too. The line in last episode when when Gabby and Reiner are walking, and she's like, "Your mom's worried about you,"
Yeah,
and and it's crazy. Just one episode ago, you think it's a throwaway line, and he's like, "Yeah, I went to war
yeah.
at
Came
12.
back a man.
I came back, a completely different person," and like could not have undersold that statement more.
Yeah, man.
Like he yeah he put their his mental state, as we'll see, is completely dire. You know.
Yeah. What's crazy, and I love this direction, and this really worked for me. Is what's crazy is we see them kick in the wall,
Yeah.
which is in the season opener or the
Hmm.
series opener.
Yeah.
We see Berthold kick it in, and what's crazy is we see him come out still a kid.
Yeah.
I was getting curious, like, okay, just trying to line up my dates. Like, when do they like kick in the wall and then slip into the city? What do
It
they
had to have.
do?
Yeah.
But yeah, they arrive, probably shortly thereafter. They kick in that wall. Like, so, like, Berthold's like a 13 or 14-year-old boy
Yeah.
when he commits this crazy, violent act of murder, manslaughter, destruction, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
And as he's coming out of his Titan, he sees Dina Fritz's Titan walk right by.
Yeah.
And he has no idea, obviously, of the significance. Like, he knew, I'm sure that they knew that, part of their plan was to attract more dumb Titans, or Titan weapons, I guess they call them now,
Hmm.
to really cause more mayhem in the city. But yeah, man, that was crazy seeing the young kids,
Yeah.
do the attack. And then, anything you want to touch on that before we keep moving?
No, that's pretty much it. Because that it was also interesting too, seeing like there's another moment of like Reiner thinking back to Aaron in training. Kind of just seeing himself as Aaron goes to the ground and like
I
just trying to push
know.
himself, and it's like like clear. And you know what too? It's so funny because like
And
I think
at the time, I'm just realizing, did they know yet that Aaron had a Titan? No,
no one
none
did.
of them knew until Aaron knew, right? Until the
Yes,
audience. So that must have turned their plans right the fuck upside down.
yeah. Well, because is that not when? Because that is when Army starts noticing Annie snooping around. No.
Yes, it's around there, and then Aaron, in the midst of the attack, the second one, yeah, because they probably would have grown up together in scout training.
Yeah.
And then Aaron really doesn't become a Titan until he sort of dies trying to save Armin in that attack.
Yes.
And then he becomes a Titan, and at this point he's known Reiner and all the scouts,
Yeah.
all the scout recruits for several a few years at this point. So part of their whole thing was, hey, we have to flush out the founding Titan. We know it's here somewhere, and they sort of succeeded. I just don't think they knew what they were signing
And
themselves up for.
there's also the really interesting line of Bertolt. He says like, is the king really not like, is the founding Titan not going to be used when we kick in this wall?
Yeah.
He's like, and like he's just so dumb. You could tell like in that moment too, like they want this to be as over as quickly as possible. I I I don't think they want to be there. I don't think they want to kill all these people.
Yep.
I think they just want to get the Founding Titan get out. And like, it's just you can just tell how hesitant they were right from the get go. And I guess that's a good way to kind of cap off like that portion of the
Yeah.
episode. But
Um, the next stage for them is really recon, and one thing that we see is an interaction between two characters that I never would have predicted, and that's
yeah,
Annie tailing Kenny.
yeah, that was interesting.
So clearly, like in recon stage, and I have two theories, but I think I know, or I have a guess at which one is accurate. Why do you think she's tailing him? Is it because we know that a different civilization, as mentioned by Kenny's, really did not like the Ackermans because I think like the founding Titan couldn't control them?
Yeah.
Or is it just simply because at the time Kenny was close to the king?
Well, yeah, I think because he was like his cleaner at that
He
point.
was
He was
like
very,
yeah, they were like getting to know one another.
yeah.
Okay, so you think it was just simply like Kenny was like a known thug, but he was like had some connections with the king, and so Annie tailed him.
The thing I was thinking about, like, how would they know that? I'm sure they have like, I'm sure. Do you think Marley has had people living in like parody for over the years? Like,
I mean, maybe.
like how would they have known that Kenny, or like do they even know the Fritz family is still kind of like running the show behind the scenes?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
I did find that very interesting. Or it could have been like that. Also makes me think it's because they know the Ackermans are one of the seven families that are unaffected
Yeah.
by the Founding Titan.
So that's a weird. That was weird, but she at least has a couple of reasons to be tailing him. So she does.
Yes.
He sniffs it out. She takes a swing at him, misses, and gets the fuck out of there.
Yeah, big swing. I love the line she used. Like it's like you're my dad kind of thing, and he was like,
Yeah,
okay, well if you are, let's see your hands.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Neither of them are fucking around.
yeah, no, that's wild too.
Okay, this
Do you think
next
she could have
one,
taken? Do you think she could have taken Kenny at that state?
100% no.
No.
Well, wait. What am I saying? She's a Titan,
Yeah.
so
Do you think she would have dropped it if she thought he was going to kill her?
I don't know what she would have done. I mean, yeah, that's a tricky thing. Like adult Kenny versus 13 to 14-year-old Annie. I think Kenny's got it, but she could turn and give him a quick squash. I don't know. I think the best decision was getting out of there and keeping her cover not blown.
No, for sure. Just the thought of it, like just the kick she made on the
Oh
wall
my
and
god,
like
that
the
was so
dramatic,
cool.
yeah, so well drawn and done.
Um, this next one, dude, this next event got me, and it got the internet. Like inadvertently, I was seeing this everywhere, and I still haven't really been spoiled. I was just in the Reddit discussion thread. They have an anime only discussion thread that I
Yeah.
read right after because it's such a fucking blast. And Berthold, the three kids, they come across this old man, and he talks about how his family died in this attack by these dumb titans or whatever.
Yeah.
And he just talks about, I was I was living here and I heard a noise and I opened my window and I saw them.
And I got my horse and I ran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Line for line, Berthold uses that story when he's explaining his background to the scouts in season 1.
Yeah.
Line for line. He uses the exact same dialogue that this old man told him as his own backstory. And this next one is a bit of a stretch, but it's hard to believe that anything is a coincidence in this show.
Yeah.
So you let me know if you think it's crazy. The next one is, they pay homage again to a joke that was in the series earlier about how Berthold sleeps weird, and they would use his sleeping positions to try and predict weather patterns. Do you remember that?
God. I do remember that. Yeah.
Kind of funny.
The clear sky pose.
Yeah. So this is the funny part is they do it again in this show. They show a scene of Berthold sleeping all weird. And I only know this because I've seen it on tarot cards and like I've heard of it in a certain way you can go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And the pose is called the Hanged Man pose. And then Berthold mentions in that episode, I keep dreaming about that man that hung himself.
And then he says, why did he say sorry?
Huh?
That was another line too. I believe Berthold
Oh,
makes a
yeah.
reference to. He says, the guy said, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Also like I don't think it's fair throwing shade at Bertold for that pose because I didn't know it was called that, but that is one hell of a stretch at the end of a day.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
great.
that's
Yeah,
that's a
I
good one.
slept that way.
So the when it was revealed that Bertolt was the Colossal Titan, I did remember like about his poses.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a way of them teasing that like his limbs were too long and he had to stretch out.
Oh, fuck. That would be good
That
too.
that was all like that was my kind of take from it.
That's cool. Yeah.
And then when they
It
kind of
could be
threw
both.
it could be both. It could be that's the thing. Everything could be wrapped up into it. But I remember like seeing that again on screen, him having like a completely stretched out legs up and kind of. I think his arms were kind of crossed if I remember. Like I don't think his arms were out wide. Um, but I was like, oh, like, but he hasn't been a colossal titan in such a long time. But it could be like itching. That was just like my take on it. I don't know if that's factoring like that.
No, I
It's
mean,
just kind of
I think
self lore building.
I mean, it could be, but they've also shown us that they're willing to reinforce the same point, whether through foreshadowing or like artistic parallel or even just straight up dialogue. They're
Hmm.
willing to give the audience hints and alliteration in more ways than one, just to make things clear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like this whole Berthold using this guy's cover story as his own, they match the dialogue, and then they do in the scene they do the same frame shot
Mm,
of the guy opening his window and he sees Titans outside.
mm.
And it's the same shot of Berthold's imagination back in season one, except for Berthold is there in his version of the story.
I think that's guilt at play. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
It's
there's no way any of that is an accident. Like it's frame for frame, line for line. Give me a fucking break. That's like amazing. Just good planning, I guess.
because when you think about it, like Bertolt must carry a massive amount of the burden, and it kind of it makes sense why he was
He's like
kind
the
of
nuke.
well, he's the nuke, but also too like he threw the first stone.
True.
Like from the get go,
He
like
was the match.
he was the match. Just that started all of this. And like you said, like he kind of didn't really come. He not like I guess like a come to Jesus moment if you want to call it that, but it wasn't. It's like you said until season 3, part 2. Like he was kind of like conflicted, not conflicted, but like you could tell he wasn't.
He hadn't given in 100%.
He hadn't like fully invested into it, and
Yeah, I mean, Armin is able to get under his skin in season two during a conflict,
yeah,
and finally goads him into responding because the audience is confused in season two, and so are the main cast, right? Like, why are you doing
yeah,
this? What's your motivation? And they're always so tight lipped,
yeah,
right? Like, it's like, well, you don't know I have a lifetime worth of reasons to be doing this, but I'm not going to explain that to you now. But finally, like, Bertolt or Annie, or I'm sorry, Armin mentions Annie, gets an emotional response out of Berthold, and he basically says like, "Hey, do you think we want to do this?"
hmm
Or I think it's Aaron that gets him to talk finally, but he says like, "What good people or what people on Earth would want to cause this much pain and suffering? You
yeah,
think we have any choice in the matter?" Like he freaks the fuck out.
yeah, loses it.
Um, yeah, so I mean, I think if anything, it shows the conflict going on. It shows that he wasn't. None of these people were born evil.
No,
Um, anyway, that was pretty dope. We come out of this long line of flashbacks and of all these things to Reiner in his room about to blow his brains out.
that was one of the him loading the whole lead up to like you know bullet into cartridge, cartridge into gun, lock in, and then
See the face.
I genuinely thought he was going to do it. I really
Me
did,
too.
and
Because it would make perfect sense for him to blow his head off after everything we just learned.
exactly. I really thought that's where they were going, and he was kind of like, oh shit, it's that's how this is going to go,
Yeah.
and then
It's also, I hate to say it, but people in captivity do this. It's
yeah,
it's like their only way of taking their power back.
yeah,
They get to quote make a choice for themselves, and that's pretty fucked up. But
yeah,
if you're Reiner and if you've just seen all the stuff of what has happened to him, I get how he winds up here.
yeah, and
I think
then
that's the point.
that 100% the point. But the one thing, the gripe I don't like, what are the odds of Falco standing right outside his room? I found the transition from him also too, like him pulling the gun out of his mouth.
Oh,
This is
I
what this
know,
is
I
what I was
know.
referencing earlier. This is one of the most visceral, like the
The spit still on it.
the spit and just like the emotion they had on his face, like the
The
shock
sound,
and the
even the voice
terror,
actor is
the
doing a good
ter-
job.
the terror in his face of what he was about to do. He has that moment of like, no, like, you know, I was shocked. It was one of the most visceral things I've ever seen in an anime.
I
Like
agree.
it looked live action, honestly.
Oh man,
It was so realistic.
yeah, it did look live action. Like when they're panning up at and you see the jawline
Yeah.
and the gun in the mouth, you're like holy fuck!
Yeah.
Like Mappa I think is a studio doing this, and like they're really picking their shots.
Yes.
Like they seem to know when to throw weight behind a punch for the scenes they really go all out for.
Yeah.
That was sick. Yeah, Falco is a little bit.
That was very
Uh,
like ham-fisted into like,
yeah, he's a little convenient,
yeah,
but I'm fine with it. The story.
100%. It made me laugh actually. I was like, it was such like like a closer to that whole recap and history of Reiner and the previous warrior class, and then it's kind of just like, hey, Falco's here. It was kind of disjointed,
Yeah, and
but
it's also it gives they did a good job in the previous episode establishing that Reiner's a bit of a mentor to these kids.
yeah.
That he is paying special attention to Falco and he wants the best for them. So when he
But even
sees
then, his line is, "Oh yeah, I have those guys."
exactly,
It's such a weird, but like it's just
I
it was
think
so weird. It was such a very weird transition. It was like just the clarity. He had like 100% clarity.
I think he did, but that I know what you're saying, but I also
Hmm.
think that because of his weird fucked up like disassociative
I think he just switched over.
nature. I don't know if he switched over, but I think it's maybe easier from him to context switch or to go from extreme to extreme to calm, just
Mm,
like throughout the nature of what he's been going through,
sure.
just
Yeah,
because he's unstable as fuck.
that's a good way of
May
putting it.
not be the first time he's put a gun in his mouth. I mean, I don't know. It's
I bet you when they came back from parody, I bet you had
yeah,
a moment
dude.
like that.
Yeah, man. Then there's only like 5 minutes left in the episode at this point, and I'm like, damn, like this was all great, but I really wonder where we're going from here. And then we get this third act that's like 5 minutes long, and it's Falco stopping by that hospital. It looks like a trauma hospital. He gets waved over by one of the wounded Eldians. I think they were, what did they call them in the previous episode? They're like emotional
Emotional.
trauma
Yeah.
from overexposure to war.
Yeah.
Bombs going off and shit like that. And it's the dude that had the armband on the wrong.
Can I say called it?
Did you? I can't remember.
I knew I don't think I said it was Aaron, which we find out it's Aaron. Uh,
So good.
but they clearly showed him for a reason last episode.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like
Yeah,
definitely. They also definitely had him not speak for a reason because I heard that man's dulcet tones and I was
yeah.
like, oh yeah,
I
my
couldn't
boy.
believe it.
Man, so good. Such a great reveal. We learned so much in such a short amount of time.
We haven't seen him in how long,
A very long
and
time. It's
he
been what, 4 year
has.
gap?
It'd be a 4 year gap, and you can just tell like he
He's
has
changed.
changed big time.
And they definitely hint at it because if you remember at the end of season 3, part 2, I think there's a 1 year quick time skip. And he looks a little bit older towards the end of season 3, part 2 in that
Hmm.
last season finale. He looks a little bit more mature. Hair was getting a little bit longer.
Yeah,
And he was a little bit less. After he learned the truth, he kind of mellowed the fuck out a bit.
yeah,
Probably, deep sinking depression.
yeah.
But, I remember they come across the Titan when they're on their way to the docks, and he goes, oh, it's a fellow patriot, just let it be.
Mm,
And then he points across the ocean. He's like, hey, like, if we go and kill all of our enemies, will we finally be free? He's not, I'm going to crush everyone, Aaron, all
yeah.
the time. I'm going to kill everybody. I'm going to take my freedom. He just seems kind of mature and sad. And this is that Aaron that we meet. He's also definitely undercover.
100%.
Which is fucking dope.
I wonder how long he's been undercover. Do you think he fought in that war?
I don't know. This is like the crazy part. Is like he's missing a fucking leg.
But he's lost limbs before, and they grow back once he turns into a Titan. So he clearly hasn't been a Titan for some period.
Well, but also he can grow things back when he's not a Titan. He's had his hands cut off, and they grow back over time. So
But
another
did that not start happening once he turned into a Titan?
no, because there's a whole point in season 2 where Reiner had accidentally bit off his hands, and Eren can't transform until he's done recovering, and they show you slowly him recovering as a human. Remember
Oh,
his tooth grew
yes.
back in season 1?
Yeah.
Like so it comes back, but I think the thought is that maybe he's gotten better at controlling it, and he's like suppressing the healing,
Mm,
if that's possible.
he must be. While he's yeah, there must be something
Maybe they
there.
actually cut the eye out too because he's got bandages over there. Anyway, he's committed to the role. Let's just
Yeah,
say
100%.
it's like Daniel Day-Lewis when he actually became a shoe cobbler. That's how you get the fucking Oscar. Um,
And Aaron's going for the Oscar.
Eren's going for the
Like,
Oscar. He's
yeah.
got like some peach fuzz. His hair is long as fuck.
I love how it's my favorite thing this season is that's how they show time has passed. That like
Everybody has a small mustache now.
everyone has a little bit of scruff, just like a little thin line. Like that's another thing Reiner and Aaron have in common.
Well, those 4 years are like big puberty years, right? If there's a
Yeah,
4-year gap and they all have like 4 left, it's like what difference between like 18 and 22 or something,
yeah, absolutely.
or somewhere in there, approximately. But yeah, so sure, use your scruff ability, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing he says is, "I'm here for emotional trauma, but it's a lie," and that's like such a dope line
Yeah,
because it's definitely a lie. I think the first thing, Aaron has this amazing monologue that we'll talk about, but like the thing that strikes me is that he knows that Falco's a warrior candidate, and he doesn't wish him death. So,
did you see his
oh,
eyes though when Falco mentions I'm to be the armored titan and Aaron's eye just like
yeah,
shifts over and you can tell. I bet you Aaron's spooked out by Reiner has done some damage to him too.
yeah, man. It's makes me super curious. The first thing I took out of that is that Aaron knows what's going on. They had
Hmm.
those books, they read them. Who knows how long they've been here? I think the character we see in the hat at the end of episode 1 is definitely another one of the crew. My guess is
You
Gene.
would thought it was Gene, yeah.
My guess is Gene. So Gene's there. Let's just say, if I'm right, Aaron's there. We got at least 2 boys in on the inside.
Yeah.
How long have they been there? How much do they know? Aaron's having a straight up convo with one of the warriors.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll get some intel out of there. Maybe he already has a significant amount of intel, like you said. Maybe he was
Hmm.
part of that war. Like maybe he knows what the fuck's going on. But
Hmm.
I think that the crazy thing to me is that like it's a total the shoe is on the other table, which has
Yeah.
turned.
Yeah.
Which
It's everything.
because we're talking about the Zeke and all these guys are like, hey, let's give it another shot. Let's go back down there and finish the job. It's like, you've already been infiltrated.
Yeah.
Like you guys are gearing up to give this another go. And just like how the whole series starts, we're already living among you.
Yeah.
Which is fucked.
Yeah.
God damn, man, I loved that knowledge bomb.
Yeah.
Or like, I loved that, and I loved Aaron's monologue. Did you enjoy that shit?
It's so good to have Aaron on screen again. Even for all those years where it's like you had said, he was so whiny and so stubborn and pig-headed for such a long time, and then like his character got good right as it was kind of coming to like a season close.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're getting him older, you know, more seasoned. Wise is, it's how wise can you really be when like you're doing clandestine, undercover operations and like, it's just you can just tell everyone is so changed. The
Yeah.
Everyone has changed. Like no one has been able to go back since like the light has been shined on everyone. It's I like you said, excellent monologue, perfect introduction. I was wondering if Aaron might have lured Falco with
Mm-hmm.
the armband thing. Like what are the odds, like the timing of like Falco being there though?
Oh, dude, it was like it feels like a ploy, right?
You know,
He's in the he's in the Liberio. He's among all the Eldians. He's clearly, he's among all the Eldians as all the warriors are returning.
yeah.
They're all gathered in one spot.
Hmm.
So that, yeah, I think that was probably we could probably assume part of the plan. And just to touch on something you said, I totally agree. Aaron is such a whiny little bitch in so much of this show, and that makes you appreciate the role he's playing right now so much more. You know what I mean? Like him being so measured in his response and how he deals with Falco and lures this kid in. It's because he's changed and he's seen
Yeah.
a lot of shit and he's
Yeah.
matured a ton. That is some very grade A character development that they do in like 4 minutes.
It's like you said, the 4 minutes is the key thing because it's clear, it's concise, and clear and concise. In they don't give you too much, they don't give you too little. You get a good reveal. It's just one of the best closing scenes in an episode in the whole series, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And the content of the monologue is great. It's more or less the theme is perseverance and war. It,
Yeah.
more or less starts on war is bad. If everybody knew what went into a war and what it did to people, no one would ever start a war. And like the audience probably is on board with that after we've seen what it's done to all these people.
Hmm.
But he kind of keeps going though, and he's like, yeah, but then again, you know, the only people that see an end to this stuff are the ones who persevere, people that never quit. And that's sort of the theme. And what's crazy is like it's tricky. I know translation from Japanese to English is one of the rougher ones,
Hmm.
but he has this metaphor in there where it's like you may never escape your circle of hell until you push through the doors. And for all you know, it may just be another circle of hell.
Yeah.
But you'll never know
Yeah.
unless you go through it. And it's like, Jesus Christ, like that's kind of apt. It's like life was post-apocalyptic when we were on that island.
Yeah.
And it is significantly worse now that we know the truth.
Yeah.
Um, and like he doesn't know if there's an end to it, but like he wants there to be, so he's just gonna keep going.
I would love to see. I really hope we get a flashback episode of Aaron and Co. coming to Marley.
I hope so too.
Originally,
I don't want to just
I want to see
skip.
the culture shock. I want to see, like them coming to terms with like what could have been. Like it's because there's going to be some major like self-confliction.
Hmm.
When they see all this, like and I'm almost wondering too, like if you know, maybe I'm just like thinking too hard about it, but like they've been showing so much of Reiner, you know, he fell in love with like fell in love, but like he lived there in parody for such an extended period of time. Had kind of in some ways fallen to the cause, had made friends as Annie keeps repeating him, saying your friends are going to get hurt, your friends are going to get hurt.
Hmm.
You know, I I wonder if Aaron and them are going to come over and then they're going to start feeling something similar. Like are these people like they're innocent people. They're people that are not involved in the war. These are people just living in slums. I'm really curious to see like what the political dynamic is going to be for the original group now that they're over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree because it's hard. I mean, it's just hard to imagine that they're gonna have the same vigor of like let's wipe the floor with these people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like Marley is not settling either, right? Like if this was just to be solved between all the Titans and the main cast in a room, maybe there'd be some kind of peaceful resolution. But Marley's in the driver's seat, or they're cracking the whip, and I don't really think we'll have that opportunity. So someone is going to strike,
Yeah.
and I think that the main cast knows that, and they might try and beat him to the punch.
Hmm.
One thing I noticed, did you watch the preview for next week?
I did, yeah.
They really don't give much away, so I don't mind watching them. But they just mentioned that Tiber family again.
Yeah.
I also noticed that in that quick beginning in the, that in like Act 1 of the episode, when they give you the rundown on all the Titans,
Yeah.
the Warhammer Titan is not mentioned or shown at all.
Probably because they don't have red. They kind of hinted that they don't have readily available access to it.
Yeah, so I wonder if we're going to see it. I'm sure we'll see it in action. I'm just curious what we're gonna see from that family. It's a whole new
Well,
dynamic.
they're making reference to a family. It must be passed down from family member to family member.
Yeah.
If they're like these, rich aristocratic, Eldians, and that again, we had talked about that last week. I'm really curious to see how that dynamic is going to be. We got a shot of some long-haired Eldian. I think he's in a meeting with I think it's Zeke and McGath.
Yeah, looking like royalty.
Yeah,
Fancy pants.
yeah.
So yeah.
Also, a good line earlier in the episode from McGath. He's like, I don't think this is a good idea sending kids over to this island,
I know.
and like I don't like calling him my guy because he's basically a Nazi, but
He's one of the good Nazis.
has like he's a soldier though. He has insight, and he's like, I don't think this is a good idea sending these you know they're about to like proper hit puberty and like their emotions are gonna just be fucked,
Yeah,
like,
man. That was a good one.
yeah.
Yeah. So very solid episode. Did we miss anything?
No,
Oh, what was the moment that made you rise up out of your chair? Did we cover that? Was it?
that was Reiner.
Oh,
The
see,
like
for me, it was Aaron. It was
yeah,
the Aaron reveal.
well, for
I was like,
sure.
oh!
Yeah, I was just in shock, but like, I think when it loaded to him loading a bullet into the cartridge, I immediately was like, oh, Reiner.
Yeah.
No, dude. No, dude. That's not. Please don't.
Part of
But
me wonders, like, Reiner. I don't think the chances of this are very high, but part of me wonders, like, Reiner's been so conflicted throughout the whole series. It almost makes you wonder. He hates this stuff so much. Is there any
yeah,
chance he helps the Eldians bring it down from the inside? Like he helps Aaron and crew? Like, you know what? Fuck this. I don't think so. But he would, if there were a character built for that purpose, it would be like him and Falco.
mm.
That were like, the you may be my enemy, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. Like, I don't want to be a slave anymore. Are you saying that if I help you, I won't be?
I honestly don't know because if you had asked me that maybe like a week ago, I might have, if at the end of last week's episode, or even like mid the first week, I might have thought that. But Reiner, I don't think it's going to end good for him. He's so back and forth. He's for lack of a better term, the split personality he's been working with. I think that's going to come to a pretty drastic ending for him.
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to have any salvation. I think him pulling that gun out of his mouth, it was him kind of putting that to rest, and he's like back in.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we'll see. But it doesn't feel like he's heading towards a happy ending.
No,
Boy needs a
so
win.
no.
Really hope we get more of our main cast. I'm calling them that, but we haven't seen very much of them in the episodes to come. There may be an episode next week. There may not be. I think you had the idea, the reason there may not be for anyone listening is, holiday season. Like maybe our guess is that like the network or the studio or whatever might just put a quick 1 week hiatus and delay this episode.
Yeah.
May or may not happen. Either way, if there is an episode next week, we will watch it and record and get it out in a timely fashion. If not, Grant, you had the idea maybe we'll do like a holiday episode.
Yeah, just kind of like a year in review. Favorite moments doesn't have to be stuff from this year. Kind of just what you know. We're busy guys.
Yeah, we're
we can't.
currently watching some of our favorite anime that are not Attack on Titan, or just whatever else has been going on. Yeah.
Yeah, we both the show kind of says it itself. We try and watch anime when we can and when it's when our schedules permit. And there has been some time this year where I've gotten some stuff in, and I'd love to talk about it. So.
Yeah, man, there are a couple shows that are definitely worth discussing a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, if there's an episode of Attack on Titan next week, expect an episode of us talking about it. And if not, look out anyway, because we'll talk other anime and other forms of entertainment, and we'll get it to you that way.
Yes, sir.
All right, this has been Part-Time Otaku, the podcast. This was episode 3 already of Attack on Titan Season 4. And look out for the next one.
Can't wait.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Later, Dave.
Me.